This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
What's up, folks? Welcome in on a Football Friday. Jonathan Von Tobel flying solo for the day, but don't worry. You know where your lover, Stormy Buonantony, will be with us in 15 minutes. She is going to be hitting the road to Salt Lake City, as she has a good one. She's got Utah again this week. We'll get her thoughts on what is going to transpire on Saturday for the game that she's got. A big one, if you will, between Colorado and the Utes. That'll be coming up in a little bit. We have a lot to get to. That's why it's the best time of year. We have almost every single sport in action at this point right now, and we have to cover every single one of them. We've got a great list of guests to do just that, so let's get the day started.
Time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
We do it every single week on a Friday. You know, it's funny. I've never really asked for feedback on this. We do it every week, but I don't know if you like it. I'm going to assume you do. Week 8 market power ratings. We've got a lot to unpack when it comes to the way the betting market is viewing some of these teams, including a team that has won and covered 3 straight being downgraded, according to the betting market. Now, we have a quarterback change, so we'll see. Maybe that's the reason why. I would argue it's not worth that much of a downgrade, so we'll see where exactly that is. And we do have a new team joining the Tennessee Titans at the bottom of the power ratings. After the Titans have been downgraded, one team joins them. I think you can guess who it is. We'll tell you coming up at 11:45 p.m. Pacific time. Next up, a big one this weekend. Heavyweight title on the line. UFC 321. Tom Aspinall and Sirigan. Very much looking forward to this one. We're going to have Dave Ross joining us to give us his perspective on the main event, the card as a whole. Very much looking forward to 321 this coming weekend. One of the few that will get me to buy. I'm in. No illegal streams here, no crack streams, anything like that. I will spend my hard-earned income on UFC 321 this weekend. Very much looking forward to the big boys going at it in the main event. And last, and certainly not least, we got to start here. We don't need a Thursday night recap. We don't need any of that because today is the day. The World Series starts later this evening. The Fall Classic, very much looking forward to it. Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Dodgers, of course, looking for a back-to-back World Series romp. We get a good one in Game 1 between Blake Snell and Trey Savage. So there's a lot of different ways, I think, that we can start with our preview of what this World Series will be. We'll get to specifically Game 1 coming up in a moment, but I think it's important to kind of zoom out with what we have for this series at this point right now. Dodgers at some spots open up as a 235 favorite. That's here at Circa for the series, getting bet upwards of minus 250. You can look around, though, and find some different prices. So if you like the Dodgers, for example, cheap price out there on the market is minus 215 for the series as a whole, and you see a lot of our different offshoots in terms of the ways we can bet this over 5.5 games at minus 162. And then our series correct scores, most likely outcomes according to the betting market. Dodgers in 5, Dodgers in 6, both at plus 360 sitting right there. But there's a clear advantage here, according to the market, but also from a narrative standpoint, this Dodgers team has been here. This Blue Jays team has not. The last time the Blue Jays got this far, a lot of these guys weren't even born yet on the Toronto Blue Jays. So let's hear from Dave Roberts, who was asked at media availability yesterday, is it an advantage to have the experience of playing this far into the postseason?
First off, we're very excited to be here as well. I think that, some part of it you could argue that the naivete, the inexperience is a good thing, but I feel that the ability to manage moments, your heartbeat, is advantageous and understand, especially in a 7-game series. So I think that we're equipped to play well, and we're facing a very good ball club. But yeah, I like the experience, but also like the enthusiasm that those guys have, and we have some of those guys too.
Usually, as somebody who really likes a lot of data, analytics, things like that, I tend to kind of poo-poo the whole, man, they've been here before. They've got that championship DNA. That counts for something. But sometimes it does. Sometimes it does count for being able to handle a moment. I mean, the Dodgers were beneficiaries of that at the end of that series with the Philadelphia Phillies, where you have, of course, sorry, Justin, but a complete meltdown near the end of that deciding game in the series, where you just got to make a simple play, throw it to first. But ultimately, as we heard afterward, maybe the moment was a little too big. But there's a lot that hangs over this series as a whole, and we still do not know if the Toronto Blue Jays, speaking of, will be whole themselves. One of the big positional advantages potentially is going to be in this infield. We don't know what's going to happen with Bo Bichette. Now, we do know he is on the roster. We just don't know what his status is going to be for this series. Let's hear from manager John Schneider, who was asked about Bichette's status and what his role could be here in the World Series.
Hitting, continuing to make progress. He's going to do that again today, hit live. He's taking ground balls, running. He's going to do more of the same today. So you guys will see him out there. He's feeling good, which is nice. Still a few more boxes to check.
If he checks those between short, second, and DH, what feels likelier to you right now?
We'll see. We're kind of coming right down to the wire with it. I could see all three of those things happening, to be honest with you. Just kind of have to talk to him after the workout today, see how comfortable he felt doing everything, and make the best decision.
Yeah, this has been a position here at second base where you're wondering what kind of production you're going to get at the position for the Toronto Blue Jays. The lineup has been tremendous. We'll go through some of the numbers for them as we look at Game 1. But whether or not you're going to have him, it can only help, obviously, against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Not that they're this insurmountable titan. They are about a 66% chance of winning this according to the betting market. But still, this is all hands on deck for a championship on the horizon. So let's talk about Game 1 tonight. Very excited to see what's going to be a good pitching matchup. Blake Snell versus Trey Savage. Right now, moneyline price minus 158 in favor of the Dodgers. We saw some spots open up minus 145. Savage and the Blue Jays plus 130. 7.5. We've seen a little bit of movement here. Saw this open under minus 125. Now we're at pretty much a pick in a lot of different spots for the total. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at this and break this down. But again, sticking with the theme of experience and pressure and whether or not you're familiar with a setting like this, Savage is going to be front and center for the young kid getting out there in a big stage like this and making a start. It's funny, we're going to hear from him right now. This is not the answer to the question that I'm about to set up, but he was asked a little bit later in the press conference about, hey, man, like you got here relatively late in the season, obviously. You're just kind of meeting all these people around this organization for the first time. It's got to be a lot of pressure when you're talking to these folks, knowing that in Game 1, there's a lot on your shoulders. But he was also asked about dealing with said pressure, and this is what Savage had to say.
I mean, I've been able to go through this and handle it as diligently as possible. With this being my rookie season and having these high pressure games, I try to treat it as if it's not as high pressure as it is mentally, but I know it's there. So I think I've just developed it over time.
In the postseason, he's got 15 innings pitched, 4.20 ERA, 3.54 fielding independent would indicate that he's probably got a little bit better going for him in terms of the outright results. The interesting aspect of this for him, though, is, of course, taking on a lineup in the Los Angeles Dodgers that as a whole has been dominant overall, but specifically has a lot of really strong left-handed hitters in this lineup. Freeman against righties, 299 in the regular season. Ohtani, 283. Muncy, can be very effective with a 267. But how they get to Savage here, and you see some of the pitching prompts for him, strikeouts at 5.5. The outs, I think, are going to be pretty interesting. I do think the Dodgers, with this lineup, are going to be able to get to him, make him work that pitch count up, maybe even cause some damage, given how good this lineup is going to be. Total outs under minus 134, under 14.5 at minus 134. I think it's still a palatable price for the most part, what we're going to see from Savage. But the other aspect of this, if you're watching up on VSiN.com or YouTube TV, is the guy on the left. Blake Snell has been absolutely incredible over these last few starts for him. Some of the numbers, Snell has pitched 6 or more innings in his last 6 starts, both regular and postseason. Over those last 6 starts for Snell, 40 innings pitched, 3 earned runs. That is an ERA of 0.67. He has struck out 56. He has walked just 10. 4 of those 10 walks came in one start. So we do know, again, over the longevity of these 40 innings, he has been great. If you whittle it down to just the postseason for Blake Snell, you're talking about 3 starts, 0.86 ERA, and a 118 fielding independent. This is, I think, going to be it, though, and this one game is kind of a microcosm, if you will, of what this series is going to look like as a whole. We've covered this a couple of different angles with our guests throughout the week here on Money Moves. We talked about this at length with Adam Burke as well. It's the Blue Jays' approach at the plate versus some of these pitchers that the Dodgers are going to throw out there. Snell, as we know in his past, has been a guy that has racked up his pitch count, that has had issues with command, that has seemingly changed here over the course and the back end of this season. And the Toronto Blue Jays are a really aggressive lineup, and it plays out in some of their numbers. You look at 13th in walk rate at 8.4%. Again, not extending those at-bats out, trying to get after it. They're first in strikeout rate. They only strike out 17.8% of the time. Again, putting balls in play, and they are literally the leader in terms of batted balls. They are first in the regular season. They've had over 4,400 and essentially 4,500 balls in play throughout the course of the regular season or events, according to StatCast. They will put the ball in play. This is exactly what they do, but I don't know if that's something you want to do here in a series against the Dodgers. You have to, and you want to get to a bullpen, which is going to be relatively weak. We also know that, by the way, some sad news is that Dodgers reliever Alex Vesia is away from the team. They're calling it a deeply personal matter. We'll see if he's going to be part of this series overall. But a weak bullpen loses a relief arm that has an ERA of about flat 3. I think it's like 3.04 at this point right now. That's going to be a blow. So I'm going to be really curious. We asked many folks about this throughout the week. I don't think the Blue Jays are going to change the way they approach the plate and these at-bats. I think it's what got them here. So I don't know why you would try to change the way that you have performed. And it's worked for Vlad Guerrero, who is the second choice to win MVP in this series, 6-1. Over at a couple of shops are in that range. Shohei Ohtani, the favorite to win the World Series MVP at plus 165. George Springer, the third choice at 10-1. And then you get quite a few Dodgers here. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts both at 16-1. Teoscar Hernandez at 17-1. Max Muncy, for my money, I think is the mid-to-range shot that you want to take, the long shot you want to take at 20-1. And then Blake Snell as well at 20-1. Hard, I think, for some of these guys. But if you're going to go pitcher, Snell might be it if you like, or you savage for the most part, if you like the Dodgers, though. Because, again, pitching at the beginning of the series, we might be able to see him 3 times at the course of a long series. We'll have plenty on this, though, as we move along. Will Hill's going to be with us in 15 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on it. Greg Peterson will be with us in the second hour as well. But when we come back, my partner in crime, Stormy Buonantony, she'll join us. We'll get her thoughts on the college football weekend, some bets she's added, and more. Don't go anywhere. We are just getting started here on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
So if you're watching, you've noticed that, again, it's a Friday and I'm by myself. This has been the thing that I have to deal with, the burden that I carry once a week here on Money Moves. But thankfully, between all of the lunches and the meetings and just the, I would say, frivolity of these road trips, Stormy Buonantony has decided to make some time for us today here on a Friday. She joins us via the Progressive guest line. Stormy, what's going on? Wait a minute, you're still here. You're in the city and you can't make it, huh?
I didn't realize your life was so hard, JVT. I'm sorry. My flight is at 1 o'clock. So as soon as I get off of the air with you, I am headed straight to the airport. And I offered, let the record show, I offered to come in studio to do this hit with you before I left. And you said, just do it on the phone, Stormy. So I'm even giving you video, JVT. I'm pulling my side of the weight here.
That's very true. It's very true. And not to invoke our wonderful government one more time for a second straight day. We had Department of Justice mentions yesterday, but you're pushing it because with this shutdown, everything going on. I know you're a pre-check, but TSA has got to be a nightmare. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit anxious. I did get a text message from Delta telling me to come 3 hours early, but I felt like maybe that was a little excessive. So I'm just going to try to make sure I follow the rules of the law and not go too fast on my way to the airport. But we'll be fine. If not, I'll call you again and see if I can join you for the second hour.
I was going to say, yeah,
we'll have extra time.
I got some time, so if you need somebody to kill some time, I'm with you. All right, let's start then with where your journey will ultimately end. You're going to be in Salt Lake City again. We get Colorado and we get Utah, floating around a 13.5-point spread. Total's 49.5. So let's just start with anything that has stuck out in the early meetings you've had from a narrative standpoint, from an availability standpoint. What do you think is one of the main things we should know about your game?
Well, I definitely think priority one is what's the status of Utah quarterback Devin Dampier going to be, because I would not say that him starting is a sure thing or that if he does start and play, that he's going to play the entirety of the game. It's a question mark in my mind. He re-injured his right ankle last week against BYU. It's the same ankle that he hurt against Wyoming earlier this year that he then played through against Texas Tech. Remember all of the questions about, well, Devin Dampier wasn't on the availability report all week, and then you're talking about how he hurt his ankle post-game. Well, this is the same situation this week, although he is actually on the injury report. He's been listed as questionable. When we talked to Kyle Whittingham and the staff on Wednesday, at that point, Dampier had not practiced yet. The plan was for him to practice for the first time on Thursday, albeit in a limited capacity, and then they're going to make their decision on whether or not he's going to be QB1 to start later on today. So we'll find that out. If he doesn't go, though, I will say Bird Ficklin, his freshman backup, who has been receiving the first team reps early on in the week at least, runs the system very similarly to the way that Devin Dampier does. He has the same skill set. He fits Jason Beck's RPO offense really well. So there will be very little, if any, changes to the game plan. It's more so just, what do you trust him to do from a freshman mistake standpoint versus having a veteran quarterback? So that is the biggest thing to me, just for everyone to be aware of as far as this game goes, is will Dampier start? And if he does, to what capacity will he be himself? Because we did see how impactful that was against Texas Tech.
All right, what about Signal Caller on the other side? I'm reading a story that Caden Salter has a new 7-11 NIL deal, so it's good for him. However, in terms of actual quarterback play, Deion Sanders has shown some hesitancy to kind of like go all in and say, this is my guy. I think you mentioned this earlier in the week. I don't think you've talked to Deion yet, but just what is the dynamic here at play for Colorado's quarterback situation?
Yeah, well, hopefully with the 7-11 theme, his wide receivers will be 24/7, right? Isn't that like the thing? Yeah. We'll see how that goes. But it has been an odd dynamic with Deion Sanders and Caden Salter throughout the course of the season. And Salter comes over from Liberty. He's got all this experience. He's named the day one starter. But then it doesn't look the way that Coach Prime really wanted it to look. So you see the backup, well, actually, it ended up being the third string quarterback come in. We saw a little bit of Juju Lewis. And then ultimately, Salter re-earns the job against Wyoming. He shows up and shows out. And then it's still been a little bit up and down. But Salter has at least cemented himself as the guy. Against Iowa State, prior to their bye week, it was the best performance that we had seen from Salter all season. And it was a little bit of a slow start, but 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, 57 rush yards. So I would hope that he can build on that, but the inconsistency, it's been up and down all season, that I don't know how that's going to look now in a really tough environment at Utah. I hope for the best for the kid, because obviously you come over to Colorado, it's big shoes that you're going to fill with Shedeur Sanders, who's your head coach's son. So it's already an uphill battle from there. But it seems like he has started to hit his stride a little bit and find some chemistry. So we'll see if he can do that coming up on Saturday.
All right, before you move on, I always like to ask you every single week when we get a chance to talk to you, your favorite narrative, storyline, little thing that you're going to have as part of your sideline reports. Has anything popped up?
There are always like a few things that I like, but one of my favorites was Ryan Davis, receiver over at Utah. I didn't realize this when I was going through like my research and prep to him, but it just kind of unveiled itself in our conversation this week, that he had 2 hip surgeries prior to his arrival at New Mexico, where he played with Devin Dampier and Jason Beck when he was there. He had 2 separate hip surgeries that like really drew him back when he was at UAB. And last year at New Mexico was his first real season that he was healthy. And this year he's doing everything he can to make sure that his body stays right throughout the course of the year. So he's talking about all the hot yoga he does to keep his flexibility and different swim exercises. He said he's like an old lady in the pool doing swim exercise. So a little fun thing like that I actually just found was unique and cool about him.
Stormy Buonantony with us, usually in control of the show here, but I will be running it into the ground for today. She is off to Salt Lake City to stock the sidelines for Colorado and Utah. All right, let's hit some of the other games that you've got on your radar. Utah, I believe this is the second time you've had them. California is the team that is in the leader right now. For most times, Stormy Buonantony has covered them this season. They're on the road against Virginia Tech. They are catching 6.5. A couple of weeks ago, you called it. They went out to BC. They took care of business. Can they do it again today?
We'll see. I think so. I like them plus the 6. I know we've talked about it this week already that Cal didn't deserve to beat North Carolina last Friday night, and it's a cross-country trip, road game. The team that they're facing is coming off a bye, blah, blah, blah. I still think this sets up kind of nicely for them, and I'm not sure that a bye for a team that's already fired their coach and has players that are contemplating where they're going to go in the transfer portal and figuring out their plans after the season, same thing for assistant coaches, is necessarily the best thing for a team like Virginia Tech. Then schematically, Cal's a high volume passing team. One of their biggest problems, I know, has been efficiency in that area. And like part of that is the ups and downs of a true freshman quarterback. Another part is wide receiver drops. But in my mind, if their guys show up, like if Tron Grizel, if Jacob DeJesus, if Mason Minnie, if those guys show up and are catching the football, they should really take advantage of this Virginia Tech secondary. They rank 131st in the country in opponent completion percentage, 129th in yards per pass allowed. They don't intercept the ball hardly at all. And for Cal, even with some injuries they have on defense, that's a really good unit. And I don't think that the quarterback on the other side, and Kyron Drones, is really anything to write home about. So give me Cal plus 6. Let's see if we can get another one on the cross-country trip.
Former Rebel, Jacob DeJesus. Always a shout out there. Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right, let's go. I'll say this. I'll ask him this way. I think like Cal, if you were maybe in a college football contest in which 7 selections were the norm, maybe you would use Cal. Would you use Mississippi State against Texas, perhaps?
I think I would, yes, especially getting over that touchdown. Last week for Texas, I know it was a letdown spot, tough situation after beating Oklahoma in the Red River game to then go on the road, night game at Kentucky, a team that's treating it like their Super Bowl. But I was on the sideline for that game as well, JVT, and at field level, there was no juice for Texas. Arch, we know, has been up and down, so many stray throws. But it doesn't help that he's running for his life half the time. Their offensive line, more games than not this season, has been pushed around a lot. They're going to be without their starting center, Cole Hudson, for the second game in a row. Playing at Davis Wade, where the cowbells are real. Like, I was at that Mississippi State ASU game earlier this season, and I've never been in a building that is louder than it. So now you're asking like a young quarterback who's trying to figure it out with new offensive line pieces that haven't been good to then perform in that environment. And defensively, for as good as they are on that side of the ball, and they're great, they're also going to be without their leader and best player in Michael Taff at safety, who had thumb surgery this week. Mississippi State's been a great cover team. They're at home against a team that I think has been up and down and a little lackluster. Mississippi State also has potential to get Fluff Bothwell back from a leg injury, which I think is big. So, yeah, offensively, I think they should do enough to keep it close. Give me Mississippi State plus the 7.5.
I think I can honestly say the best shot that you set up for your season was the one with the cowbells all behind you. I will say it's probably the only one that I remember, but still, you did a great job with that one. Stormy, we're up against it. Thank you very much. Have a safe trip.
Thank you. I'll see it. Well, I'll call you back later if I don't make my flight. So we'll see how it goes.
Right.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Selfishly, I hope then you don't make your flight because I need some help here. Hey, folks, Sports Equinox is here. All 4 major leagues are in action at the same time. Celebrate the best time of the year for bettors with the VSiN Sports Equinox special. Sign up now. Get full VSiN Pro access to everything we do through May 1st. That's my dad's birthday. For only $120, it's less than $20 a month. You're going to get everything. The daily best bets, DraftKings, Circa, and Bracco, betting splits, AI-driven prop projections, and more. Go to VSiN.com/subscribe today. VSIN.com/subscribe.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We got a lot to get to, man. We have the World Series still. We had a good breakdown at the beginning of the show. If you missed out on that, you can go to VSiN.com. We barely hit on the player prop aspects of that. We'll get to it. We have a full slate of the NBA that's coming up in about 30 minutes. And, of course, our market power ratings. Not enough time. Let's apply for an extra hour, and let's see if that can get passed here in the next 20 minutes or so. But with that, let's not waste any more of Will Hill's time, who joins us at this time on Fridays. Progressive Guest Line is the spot. Will, thank you as always. I want to start with baseball if you could, because I'm very excited for the World Series. Looking forward to it. And I wanted to start with Snell, because I know it's a focus of some of the stuff that you have going into the World Series. Let's start with tonight before we zoom out to the big picture. So I thought there was 2 ways to attack Snell potentially here. I'm going to be curious to see what you think. Under on the strikeouts. I know he's been dominant, but the way this Toronto Blue Jays team is super aggressive, putting the ball in play, I just don't think they're going to let him get there. But I also think that means he has a long game, as we've kind of seen be the norm for him now over his last 6 or 7 starts. What do you make of what we're going to see from Snell tonight?
Yeah, I'm with you. I have the same thought process that under 6.5 strikeouts looks good. And I think the juice has gone up a little bit since I talked about it last night on my podcast, but over 17.5 outs, I just don't think the Dodgers with their bullpen with arrested Snell are going to be in a rush to get to the pen. I think he'll go 6 innings as long as he's pitching well. If he gives up 3 or 4 runs, obviously different story. If the walks or pitch count gets up there, that's a different story. But Snell has really done a good job of eliminating the walk. So I like over 17.5 outs. I didn't play the under strikeouts, but I would certainly play the under before I played the over when it came to the Ks. And I did take a shot 19-1 World Series MVP because the short shot for correct series score is Dodgers in 5. If that is the sweet spot and Snell pitches game 1 and then possibly the clincher in game 5, we've seen Steven Strasburg, we've seen Cole Hamels years ago win 2 games in a series and win World Series MVP. It's interesting. World Series MVP, it's kind of a mixed bag. There's a bunch of superstars that have won it. There's a bunch of kind of journeyman role players that have won it, Steven Pierce and some of these guys, and then a couple pitchers here and there. So there's not really a pattern, a rhyme or reason. It is a lot of randomness to it. But if it goes 5 and Snell gets 2 of the 5 wins, and the way he's pitching, I think it's possible that at 19-1, you do fade Ohtani here, and I just don't know that there's a ton of value in him at plus 180. So I will, or 160 or so. I will take a shot with Snell. Plus, a little narrative maybe with Snell. Last time we saw him in a World Series was 5 years ago against the Dodgers. He was pitching great. He got lifted early. I wonder if that plays into a little bit. But again, he's going to have to get 2 of the 4 wins, and I do think it's possible. I mean, 3-0 in the playoffs, 0.86 ERA. He's not getting hit hard. He's getting swings and misses. He's doing everything you look for in an ace. So I like him tonight, and I took a shot at him MVP.
So you were all over the Dodgers to sweep the Milwaukee Brewers. What do you just make of this series as a whole? For me, we're going to get the best bets at the end of the show. I thought -1.5 games for the Dodgers at -115 was a pretty palatable price considering the way this is looking. But what do you make of how this series is going to go?
I'm with you. I did play a little plus 680 sweep. I think ultimately 5 is less disrespectful. I mean, there's an element of this too when you're doing content where if you pick a sweep and then they lose in game 1, you just feel like you're being disrespectful. You just look stupid. But I think a sweep is on the table here. I think a short series, you do have to worry a little bit. You mentioned it. Toronto puts the ball in play. And then the aspect of the layoff, which is really hard to calculate, hard to really project. But I just think the Dodgers, the rotation's healthy. There's so much more power in the lineup, in the rotation. I think Dodgers in 4 or 5. I'll call it 4 here and take the plus 680. But I wouldn't be surprised either way, 4 or 5. And I talked to Dave Ross, who's got this big Blue Jays ticket about how to hedge. I think Dodgers -1.5 is a perfect hedge. Considering if you get to a 7th game, you can come back with another hedge. I like that angle too.
Yeah, we have Dave coming up here in the next hour, so we're going to talk a little UFC, but that we got to pick his brain on where he's standing right now with this Dodgers Blue Jays and whether or not we're going to get in on part of the come on now, you got to come back out here and get a cabana or something, right? We got to get invited. All right, let's go to the National Football League before we get to college. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like we've gone a little far. We're going to have our market power ratings coming up after you, where we look at how the market power rates these teams. The Jets are with the Titans now as the worst team in the NFL from a power rating standpoint, according to the betting market. But have we gone too far? 6.5 against the Cincinnati Bengals.
I think we have. I just don't know that the Bengals should be 6.5, 7-point favorites over anyone. It is mostly 6.5. I would expect Taylor to start. I know Glenn is playing games and trying to be secretive about who's going to start. I would think it's going to be Taylor. Bengals have been bad defensively. And look, the Jets are due a little turnover luck, a little turnover, positive regression in that aspect. So I think the Jets keep it close. Wouldn't be shocked if they won the game. We are due for a little maybe more survivor carnage after that 1 week or so where we had craziness. It's been all chalk otherwise. I think the Jets keep this close.
Yeah, I'm glad that all the carnage happened to knock me out. And then we just went right back to normal with every single favorite winning last week. That was absolutely brilliant. All right, what about Atlanta? They've been playing much better at home statistically. It's a small sample size here, but what do you make of them laying 7 in the hook?
Yeah, and surprise injury report news there with Penix questionable. I still think he's going to play. I'm not even sure it matters. I think they run all over Miami. You've been all over this from the start. Miami's so bad on defense, bad in the secondary, bad against the run. Atlanta's been really good at home. Atlanta's off of a loss. To me, this has 34-13 or something written all over it. So I like Atlanta here. I'll lay the 7.5. I think Atlanta wins and covers.
So I'll be curious, how bad do you think this is for Tua? So one of the things that Stormy and I surprisingly nailed during our Live Bet Sunday last week was at halftime, we were like, you should probably play under Justin Fields' passing yards because I think he might get benched here. And sure enough, he got benched. Do we think we're at the end of the leash here with Tua because he has clearly regressed?
Certainly possible, and you might come to a point where, hey, let's just try something else. And the benching it the other day was almost out of mercy. We're just throwing pick six and a near pick six. The weather was shaky, so let's just give somebody else a shot. But certainly on the table, I wouldn't be looking to play over. I mean, the one concern you have if they're down big, he's going to get those attempts. The attempts lead to yards. But a benching and seeing you are certainly on the table, I would think.
All right, we did not get to hear Stormy Buonantony's thoughts on this, but she does have the same side as you, so I would assume the thoughts are the same. Let's go to college football. Vandy is a short favorite in this spot against Missouri. What do we think?
Yeah, just keep taking them. They just keep covering, just keep taking them. That was a rare head-to-head where I liked Vandy last week and you liked LSU. You've beaten me about 9 or 10 of the other games we've gone head-to-head. It was nice for you to let me get one. And even though I like the under, so it's not like I was completely right about that game. I just like Pavia better than Prabula here. I think Missouri should have lost last week. Missouri's going to try to run it. Vandy's pretty good against the run. That Vandy home field, I think, is getting a little bit better. For a while, that was a dead home field. With them being better, a little more atmosphere there, a little more juice. And Missouri, coming off a game against Bama, coming off a game against Auburn that went overtime. I think this is a tough spot for them. So give me Vandy. I think the run continues here. And if you look at the rest of the schedule, there's a path for them to be like a 2-loss playoff team. So I think they win, and I think they continue to cover here.
My read in college football has been as accurate as it would be if I attempted to read the Rosetta Stone. It has not been a good college football year. So I think you're going to win more often than not when it comes to that. Let's talk about Ole Miss. Ole Miss in this spot against Oklahoma. The bad news for you is that I kind of like Ole Miss here.
Yeah, I'll take the points here, and I can relate. My NFL season on the Megapod has gone likewise. I like the points. I just don't know. Has John Mateer, the Oklahoma quarterback, is he healthy yet? Because he came back early from the injury. Great. But he threw 3 picks against Texas. Last week they won. They won comfortably, but he only threw for 150 yards. I think that Ole Miss offense is obviously much better than the Oklahoma offense. Now, look, the Oklahoma defense is much better than the Ole Miss defense, but I'll take the points with the better offense. A quarterback on the other side, I'm not sure of the health. So give me Ole Miss here plus the points. Big game. Loser is not quite done because the Ole Miss schedule is pretty favorable going forward. But if Oklahoma loses this game, they're pretty much done. And Ole Miss, even at 2 losses, they don't have a ton of great wins. So a big weekend for a lot of these teams.
And another one where we share similar thoughts. I am surprised that 14 in the hook was available for Michigan State. This Michigan offense has looked different every time away from home so far this year.
Michigan State is getting a little healthier, too. You mentioned, I still don't think, look, Underwood's going to be a good player, but they don't have a great passing game. I don't like them winning by margin. I don't like them winning by margin on the road, especially in a rivalry game. I thought Michigan State was actually pretty feisty. Was it last week against Indiana? So those hooks are starting to disappear a little bit, but I think you get a couple that are still out there. Give me Sparty here. I think they keep this game close.
All right, before we get you out of here, it's not on your list, but you have thoughts on everything, and I need it. Talk me out of it. North Carolina catching 10.5 at home against Virginia. They should have won the game against Cal. I think we're kind of at the bottom of the market here with Chapel Bill.
I would agree. And if you noticed late Friday night last week, if you were monitoring that, the market loved UNC. I'm thinking, man, what the hell? What are they seeing that I'm not? Well, the market was right. Like you said, they should have won the game. We're going in to score late. Virginia probably a little overrated. Fortunate to beat Louisville. Not as good as the record. All those things. So I'm with you. Let's put on our UNC gear. Maybe, are you doing anything tomorrow? Maybe you and I can go down to the game and cheer them on in person.
I can make the short flight. Yes, it wouldn't take me that long to get out there for sure. I think after my kid's baseball game, wait, it's at 9 a.m. I apologize. I cannot make it out there. Will, it is good to talk to you as always, buddy. Thanks a lot. Good luck this weekend.
All right. See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Shoulda Bet More podcast. Make sure you check it out. Now officially part of the VSiN family of podcasts, which absolutely robust and vigorous. So make sure you check out everything we have to offer in terms of podcasts. Also, make sure you go to the website of VSiN.com. We're going to talk about the NBA coming up here in a little bit. We're going to have more actually on the fallout from yesterday's DOJ press conference and the announcement of the arrest of both Terry Rozier, Chauncey Billups, and more. But we do have a great tool for you up on the website of VSiN.com. You go up there, you can check out the NFL props, and for a limited time, we have points, rebounds, assists, and three-point projections from Opt.AI. Make sure you get it in. Go to VSiN.com/NFL props or VSiN.com/NBA props and get started today. Market power ratings on the other side.
watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we will head to the NBA. We've got a full slate of contests tonight. Very much looking forward to what we have in store. It's just good to have it back. I know that maybe some of you don't feel the same way that I do about regular season basketball, but yesterday, 2 games were tremendous. We had a double overtime game, an overtime game. Or did it go to double overtime? Yeah, it went to double overtime again for the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. Had to sweat out the final possession. How about that, catching 7.5? And then, of course, a good game in OT between the Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets. We'll get to today's slate and some more comments and the fallout of the arrests from yesterday. Draymond Green, I thought had some pretty good comments about everything from an NBA player's perspective. That's coming up in about 15 minutes. But National Football League is where we focus our attention now. It is that time. Our NFL market power ratings for Week 8. Again, the same boilerplate as always as we head into these things. This is an example, a market power ratings. This is how the betting market views these teams. We subtract home field from the matchups, rate the teams as such, and we can get an idea of where the betting market ranks all of these teams. So it's the collective of all the thoughts that are into this betting market. And I think this week, our focus, our fascination, the storylines are all at the bottom, man. This is a week where we're looking at this and asking, how far is too far for some of these bad teams? So we can throw this up. Again, we'll walk through some of the process as we look at it. If you're watching on VSiN.com or YouTube TV or anywhere you can watch, you see where we're at. Again, this is the power ratings by the betting market. Our top-ranked team, the Kansas City Chiefs, on the 85 line. But let's direct your eyes, and I'll tell your radio audience about this too, to the very right corner of the screen where you see on the 70 line, the Jets and the Titans, the 2 lowest rated teams in the National Football League. Now, how do you get to this point? Where are you at? Let's focus on the Titans. It's one of the easier ones to walk you through. The Titans are playing the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts this weekend are a 14.5-point favorite. I would say that home field is worth, and this is what we've been using for this, 1.5 points. So what would that mean? That would mean with a spread of 14.5, the Colts are 13 points better than the Tennessee Titans. Now, what seems to me, and why we asked the question, is how far is too far? If you remember last week when we did this exercise, the Titans were the lowest rated team in the National Football League. However, the Titans were on the 72 line. We are now so far down the board with the Tennessee Titans. And here's the thing, again, we will reiterate. As we are viewing these in couplets, we are making these ratings because we're using the game lines. So if you say that we have to move the Titans up, then that means we have to move the Colts up. So if we move the Titans to, let's say, back to the 72 line where they were last week, again, still the lowest rated team in the National Football League, that would mean you got to put the Colts up 2 points as well, which would put them as equals with the Kansas City Chiefs as the highest rated team in the NFL. And I don't think that the market believes that. Colts been floating around that 83 mark for a while. So this is where you ask the question. Have we gone too far? As I was trying to convince Stormy the other day, man, 14.5, that seems like a lot. And how about this with Circa here? It's at 15.5. So I made the joke of like, hey, man, give me that 15.5 and I'll tease that bad boy up. You can use the Titans in a teaser and get 21.5 points if you want. This really seems like an extreme when you're talking about where we have this Titans group. And I get it. We have not really seen anything from them in terms of life. The ATS record hasn't been great. The lone victory that we know that they have at this point right now comes courtesy of an absolute meltdown from the Arizona Cardinals. All of that is understood. But to rate them this low, considering just the scale at which we're at, 15 points behind a team like the Chiefs on a neutral, we're talking about potentially 16.5 in Kansas City. If the Titans were to play them, it seems so extreme. And I think you could say the same for the New York Jets. And this goes back to, I think, one of the more fascinating games of the weekend as they take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals, a week ago, were right on the 73 line. Remember, they were catching that, 5.5 at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So now we look at this Bengals team, and we can't really move them up that much. They were on the 73 line, so you get bumped up. We have the Bengals right now at 75.5, 75.5. Trust me, we'll get to the Panthers, which you can see are below the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll get to that momentarily. But if you look at this Bengals team, even if you bump them up to 75.5, you got to put the Jets all the way down there at 70, considering that there's a 5.5 point difference now according to the betting market, between these two teams, as the Bengals are laying 6.5. Now, some hooks over the last few hours have started to disappear. I would tend to agree. But again, look how far this Jets team has fallen. You can't raise, in my mind, the Bengals much higher than where they're at 75.5. So if that's the case, which remember last week, again, to reiterate, they were 73, just a point ahead of the Tennessee Titans, according to the betting market. Now you have to make the Jets as low as 70. This theme of these teams at the bottom, and last week, trust me, as somebody who tried to go in on these dogs last week and got his teeth kicked in from a teaser standpoint, from a side standpoint, it was brutal. But I think we're now at this point where I understand, and you kind of see it in the power ratings. If we can throw them up one more time, if you're watching up at VSiN.com, you can kind of see these little couplets forming, or at least these rankings, if you will, forming. Look at Colts, Eagles, the Rams, and the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, the 83 line. And then you get about a 2-point gap before you get to the next rank of teams, the glut of teams. Broncos, Buccaneers, Chargers, Patriots. You look a little bit farther down, and you see a small gap forming between like Bears, Giants, and Cardinals. And then you get to the Bengals, Browns, Saints, that little gap of teams there between them. So we're starting to get these tiers forming, as you can tell, in these power ratings. But the Jets and the Titans to be that far back, to be that far behind the Raiders is beyond me, considering how poor the Raiders have been. But let's keep this up for a moment for our audience, if you can look at this. The other one that is, again, pretty fascinating here is the case of the Carolina Panthers. Now, we do have questions. Obviously, the quarterback injury for the Carolina Panthers is looming over what we're going to see here. Andy Dalton's going to start against Buffalo. Bryce Young is listed as doubtful. As we discussed yesterday, I don't think, I can almost guarantee, in my mind at least, by my measure, that there is not a difference or at least a downgrade from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton. I'm higher on Bryce Young than most, but I don't know if there is truly a downgrade between him and Andy Dalton. And yet, the way we look at these market ratings this week, the market would say there is. Last week, the Carolina Panthers were on the 77 line, and yet this week, there they are at 74.5. Again, simple math. They're taking on the Buffalo Bills. Bills on the road are 7.5 point favorites. So with 1.5 being home field, you would say that the difference between these two at this point right now is floating around a 9-point difference. So you got to put Carolina, because they're taking on the Bills, who are right there at that 84 line, right there like 74.5. So clearly, market thinks that there is somewhat of a downgrade here for Carolina. I don't think that's the case. I also think that, as we have discussed multiple times now, this run defense for Buffalo has massive issues. For those who weren't with us yesterday and haven't really been following what's going on with the Buffalo Bills in terms of where they're at defensively, overall for Buffalo, just in terms of expected points added, they are 22nd in the National Football League. If you look at EPA per rush allowed, the Buffalo Bills, 30th in the National Football League. If you look at other metrics, if you're talking about explosive runs allowed, open field yards per carry allowed, second level yards per carry allowed. These are metrics tracked by FTN. They're the 30s in both of those as well. And now you get this explosive running attack with Rico Dowdle. You would hope that maybe he is going to take the reins here after last week when Hubbard wasn't particularly effective. And we know how good Carolina has been at home. I'm really stunned to see the Panthers here. So again, Panthers are part of the play. We're going to use them as part of the card. But I think that is a really interesting dynamic as you look at what Carolina has brought to the table over the last few weeks and where we're at now. Let's talk also as well about a couple of other points here. Let's focus on the 83 line. What to do with the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar expected to come back. They're right there at 83. They haven't been that high over the last few weeks, obviously because of Cooper Rush. But if you look at where you rate the Bears, Bears have been playing well. They've been covering spreads. Their running game themselves has been very, very good. And yet you look at this, and from last week, as they are 6.5 and now starting to move to 7-point favorites. And again, I think it's more about upgrading the Ravens as opposed to downgrading the Bears. But still, as you look at them here, last week they were floating around 79 in terms of their power rating. And yet now here this week, they're at 78. So again, we could arguably upgrade the Ravens to 84, and maybe that's the way to do it. But given what we know about Baltimore, even with Lamar coming back, do we really think that Baltimore should be rated as one of the second best teams in the NFL from a power rating standpoint, with the Bills, with the Lions, with the Packers? I would say probably not. And it seems at this point right now that maybe we're a little high on them. And speaking of, in the last 45 seconds, if we could talk about one more really quickly, and maybe we can expand on this a little bit later. But the Texans right now, according to our market ratings, are on the 81 line. They are, according to the betting market, better than the San Francisco 49ers. I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Some spots up to 2.5 in favor of the Texans. If we're using 1.5, we're talking about this being a 1-point difference. So either way you slice it, Texans really high up the board by my measure. But we'll have more on this. The NFL this week is really interesting. A lot of dogs after a favorite heavy week. I don't know if that is going to be particularly great for me, but we'll find out. On the other side, big slate in the NBA. We got more news around the fallout from the DOJ's arrests and indictments around some of these NBA players. Don't go anywhere as we update you next here on Money Moves.